This week on New to You, a graphic novel, Daytripper, and a documentary, Searching for Sugar Man. All right, gang. So, welcome to New to You Show. This week with me is
Mary.
Jules.
Keith Vincent.
And John Holt. How you doing, John?
Hey, that's you.
Hey. So, Jules, welcome back to another episode with us.
Hey, can I just take a second to say what a stellar job you did last week?
Wow, thanks, guys.
Yeah. You came out here. You came like barely spoke English. You just came back from France.
Yeah, you're still 2/3 French.
Tell me about it. And you came, and I thought you, came back from the Alps too. So you're like deep in the sticks of France. Mm-hmm. And then you bring your movie, and it was great. Yeah. And you talked about it real good.
Yeah, use your words.
You took that beret off and...
Yeah. I really wish you wouldn't have eaten all that bread.
Especially since you smuggled that baguette through the airport in your butt, I think.
Well, the baguettes are okay. It's actually the farm cheese that's a big no-no.
Oh,
really?
That you can't bring?
But I think they just jam it in their ears and under their arms, and they just kind of walk in through it. They're like, hello.
Oh, no, that's how it's made.
Oh.
It's harvested from the armpits.
Scooped fresh from the ear.
Yes.
I chowned it myself.
These monks take a vow of cheese silence.
What?
They can't hear because of the cheese.
Stop it.
Yes.
So, John.
Yes.
What was new to you this week?
I termed the phrase Venus.
I think I was there for that.
What is that? It's like a bee penis?
Yeah, like a penis. Like you take a photo of your penis, but it's covered in bees because you're a beekeeper.
Oh, that's right.
I thought it was the penis organ of a drone bee.
No, that's disgusting.
Yeah, that is true.
I'm talking something more natural.
That's
the
true.
Internet. What is new for me this week? I will pass the buck, and I will tell you guys after I hear what you say was new for you. So, Mary, what was new for you this week?
I saw a movie called Computer Chess, and I knew about it because the guy who made it is a friend of mine from college, Andrew Bujalski, and yep, that's right. And he. So this is like I think his fourth movie or something, and it's I think it's my favorite. It's really awesome.
It's a documentary?
Nope.
Oh.
It is kind of a fake documentary.
Cool.
Sorta.
A mockumentary, if you will.
Yeah.
No,
a little bit. Maybe.
It's more like a science fiction thing with moments that could almost be documentary, but kind of aren't.
Well, the documentary part is that he got really old cameras and shot
that's
it.
Neat.
On these old cameras
like
as
vintage
though it was
1980s
really and
video recorders.
And there are some moments where the host is talking in the microphone to the camera, but it's about these people who they have a computer chess tournament where they program computers to play chess against each other, and it's really nerdy and funny and weird and cool. And it has a super limited release, but seems to be doing well and getting a broader release, so cool. I recommend going to see it. If you find it, you can just Google computer chess movie and you'll see if it's playing near you.
Good.
Cool.
All right, Jules, what was new to you?
Oh boy, I forgot what I was going to talk about. Keith, what do you got?
What did we see last night, Jules?
Oh, that's right. So I just saw last night a film called Blue Jasmine. It's Woody Allen's.
Man, you guys have been watching all kinds of movies lately. What's the deal?
I know. Well, it's because I got this thing called Movie Pass.
Oh.
And it basically, you have to see a bunch of movies or you lose money. If you see a bunch of movies, it's a great deal. But anyway, I won't get into that. But so I saw Blue Jasmine. It's Woody Allen's latest film starring Cate Blanchett and Alec Baldwin and some other people.
Andrew Dice Clay.
That's right. Yeah.
Louis C.K.
Louis C.K. And it was really great. I didn't know anything about it. Hadn't even seen the trailer, which is pretty rare for me these days. So it was nice just going into it, not knowing at all what it was. And I saw it at a theater I'd never been to before, so it was doubly new. And it was really great. And I would say, it was a good story, but I think it was really Cate Blanchett's performance that really made it, put it over the top for me and made it extra captivating. It's just, it's kind of like one of those, maybe almost like an obviously like Oscar-worthy performance. Like it's a very dramatic, over-the-top kind of character, but it was just so damn good that I just can't be cynical about it and argue it or anything. Like she blew me away.
Yeah.
So Woody Allen's back is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think he comes and goes. I think he just does it by numbers. He's like, well, if I make 100 films, then like 20 will be great.
Mm-hmm.
And
20,
I think, or maybe more. I don't know. Maybe less than 20. It's all subjective, but I think overall, I think even in terms of financial success, I think he makes a few sleepers, and then every now and then he makes one that everybody's like, hey, he's back.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody kind of roots for him a little bit. They want him to be good.
Yeah, you want to like his movies, and you're always kind of bummed out when you don't. But this time I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah,
so.
and I agree. John and I saw this with Jules last night, and I thought it was excellent. And I kept thinking about Cate Blanchett's character today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was kind of like, it was like a modern or take / homage a little bit to Streetcar Named Desire, where you have sort of a working class group of people and this woman who is related by blood who kind of comes in with her
not related
highfalutin. Oh well, adopted. Yeah, but he's still a family person who sort of comes in and imposes on these people and has got her own she's casting sort of dispersion on everyone and looking down her nose at them, and her life is not peaches, and so it's
a riches to rags story.
Yeah, and it's great. It's watching Cate Blanchett's character, it's kind of interesting because she's already at the bottom, and
at the very beginning,
she's already she's already circling the drain.
So it's just like that Tim Allen movie with
Home Improvement,
Kirstie Alley, where they have to go live with the Amish people.
Yeah, exactly like that. No, it's more cartoony. No, it's not cartoony.
But what about you, Holt? Since you've passed the buck, do you know what was new?
What did you say? What was new to you?
Oh, I started reading a new book. Look at that! I read books. I read a book. I'm starting to read a book about Theodore Roosevelt and charting an uncharted river in Brazil. It's really neat. It's called The River of Doubt. It's a really cool book.
Oh, cool.
Very dense book, just like the dense jungle.
And the dense Theodore Roosevelt.
So Theodore Roosevelt.
Teddy.
We'll call him Teddy if you want. He so his first term as president,
Tedro
he inherited
Wilson.
because he came in as a vice president, so he wasn't elected.
Right.
They didn't have term limits then, but it was kind of an understood term limit.
The president.
So
he ate the president.
So he became
president, right?
Yeah, the Wendigo.
I think what was McKinley? He was
shot.
He was shot. Yeah.
He shot McKinley.
Or no, wait. No, who was the one that died? Whatever. That's
Garfield.
They don't cover that part.
He had too
and
much
I'm
lasagna.
obviously
Look it up on Wikipedia.
No,
folks.
I should know these answers.
Nobody cares. We've had so many presidents. I don't even know who the current one is.
So
It's
Theodore
called
Roosevelt
politics, kids.
then vows to not run for a second term after he'd already, in a way, gone for 2 terms. And then after just 4 years of Taft, he was like, "Nope, I'm getting back in this," and he runs again for a term, and he loses because he's a third party. He's a third party guy at that point. But he's so distraught that he's like, "I've got to go, just dive into some wilderness somewhere," and that's what he does. He takes on a really treacherous journey and through some never before seen by most people on the planet terrain. It's a really, really cool book. He almost dies on the trip.
Wow.
Cool.
And he goes with his son and a bunch of people.
And his bodyguards.
No, they
Secret
don't have
Service.
Secret Service back then, I don't think. If they did, he didn't bring them along with him. He
Yeah,
just
they're
brought
like-
his own machete and gun.
Yeah, the secrets are jumping in front of mosquitoes and stuff. But yeah.
So what was new to you this week?
New to me,
Venus, you already talked.
Oh,
told
right.
us.
Yeah, Venus. No, a show that I worked on with you guys, these little shorts aired on VH1.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Oh,
new.
that's right.
Oh, yeah. Let's
So
plug
that-
all the
Check
stuff
'em
that we
out.
just
Yeah,
Are they
plug the
called
stuff we just
something?
did.
What are they called?
They are called
Metalheads.
Metalheads.
They were on
cool.
VH1 Classic, I think, during the metal show.
Yeah, that metal
Something
show.
like that, yeah.
But they were cute. They were fun to work on.
They were
Yeah.
a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah, they're pretty wild too.
Yeah.
I got to do voices on them.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wrote some cool metal tracks for it. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for this, little budget, they went above and beyond the Call of Duty and made something really fun.
It was cute. It was a lot of fun to work on something like that. Short again.
Good.
You can check them out at mixtapeclub.com.
That's
Don't
right.
do it. Don't do it.
Oh, Mixtape Club? Is that where you guys work?
No.
Oh, is it?
Guys. My stalker.
Anyway,
You
so let's
guys-
get on with the show.
Yeah, so this week we're continuing our theme of recent, so things within the past year or two.
That aren't cartoons that you worked on.
Yeah, but oops. My pick this week is a cartoon that I worked on. It's not. So anyhow, last week we talked about The Room, and we also talked about
Upstream Color.
And so this week is a pick from Keith and a pick from me. So let's get into it.
Go through four stanzas and then you sing along. When the voices of children are heard on the green, and laughing is heard on the hill, my heart is at rest within my breast, and everything else is still. Then come home, my children. The sun is gone down, and the dews of night arrive. Come, leave
All right, so this
away,
week I was bringing to the table a graphic novel that this may be cheating the 1 to 2 year time limit that we set ourselves for this theme this week, but the compilation, the graphic novel itself, was published in entirety in November 2011. So
Just barely got
just
in there.
slicing in
Holt,
there.
I'm telling you.
So arguably, this is it's 10 issues, separate issues combined into one graphic novel. That first issue, I think, came out probably in early 2011, something like that, if they came out every month. So I didn't look into that. I only read it recently myself.
We will
on a
choose to
recommendation.
believe you. We will let this one slide.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
feel so cheated. I
Yeah, I know.
trusted you.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
thought it was recent, but I'm just giving you vintage.
No kidding. He came in here with Casablanca
Well,
saying,
tastes
"Oh,
like-
I just saw it last
But you know
week."
what, guys? It was new to me.
Oh,
Yeah.
me
New to
too,
me,
actually.
too.
So this was actually recommended to me by a friend, Wendy. She lives in Denver and seems to know a lot of people who are into comic stuff. So she pointed me in the direction of this. Not through Goodreads, but just sort of just a little, hey, check this out. You may like it. So, and I did, and I really liked it.
Has she recommended other comic books that you've liked in the past? Has she recommended duds in the past?
No. I mean, it's just every once in a while, like I'll recommend her something and vice versa, but it's pretty rare that we do.
Cool.
And it's usually something.
What have you
like a good
recommended
thing.
to her?
I don't know anymore. Nothing. It's all gone. I don't know.
I'm just trying to establish a pattern here, man.
I don't know.
Okay,
I
fine.
didn't kill her.
Let's
I didn't
hear it.
kill
Let's
her.
hear it.
It wasn't me.
Okay, so
I was at the movies.
Denver Wendy. Let's hear what
Yeah.
Denver Wendy.
So anyhow, Daytripper is a graphic novel by, according to their byline in the back, a pair of brothers, I don't know about that, how that true that is, but it's comic book writer
Why
/
would they
artist.
lie about being brothers?
I don't know. It's a comic book. It's a weird thing. Who knows if they really... It could be one of those kind of funny little excerpts that they're like existentially brothers. Like they aren't... It says Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba, which I'm probably butchering, are twin brothers born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where they live until this day. They have their friends and their family. It is their home. So
They don't have the same last name.
right.
That's puts doubt.
Yeah. Unless Ba means
maybe it was
moon.
like
Maybe they're
it was like
soul
Mary
brothers.
Kate and Ashley Olsen. It sounds like they have different names, but it's actually Mary Kate Olsen and Ashley Olsen. But when you say it, maybe it's Fabio Moon Ba
never
and
thought
Gabriel Ba.
about
Oh yeah, that's a good possibility.
Yeah.
But maybe Ba is Brazilian for moon, and so the one guy takes the English and the other one takes the Brazilian.
I wonder how that accent affects the pronunciation.
Well, it's Gabriel Moon and Fabio Ba.
But the A on ba is an accent. I wonder what that does to the sound. Anyway, so it was written. So is it written and drawn by the both of them?
I think so. I think it's collaborative. Actually, it says here Gabriel Ba. So I think
art probably primarily by Ba, but
well,
maybe
it looks
story
like
together.
It looks like they might even share some of the duties on the art too, because he's got signatures on that. That
Do
I'm
they
not.
wife swap?
I
On
think
Vertigo
so.
Comics, it says written by Fabio Moon, penciled by Fabio Moon, inked by Fabio Moon, color by Fabio Moon.
So
I think it's one person.
maybe
So
art by-
Gabriel Ba just didn't do anything.
Maybe it's like in bands where they all say written by the band so that everybody gets some of the residuals.
Right.
Yeah, well, this just says that it's not what she just read.
Maybe he has like a shell company. And he just uses other persona to
I think it's
double
really
bill.
just Rob Liefeld
Yeah.
made the whole thing, and he's pretending to be somebody else so someone will actually buy it.
So it's true. The this comic book is actually an Eisner Award winner for Best Limited Series. So it's
Whoa.
got accolades or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It
Don't
is.
just take our word for it.
It is in English because
Holt
it's been
Holt
translated.
brings only the best.
So
let me tell
it
you.
was translated. So it was originally written in
I
Portuguese.
can't. I don't know these things.
Portuguese.
I mean, if it's
Portuguese.
if they were Brazilian.
like the word ba. Yeah, so probably Portuguese. But I don't know. They list an English letterer. So who knows?
Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
So it's 10 issues, and it deals primarily with a single character as sort of he's the crux, he's the center of these stories. And in each story,
You say
it's
he's the protagonist?
you could,
Okay, go ahead.
or an anti-hero, depending. But
Okay.
so in each slice of story is a segment of his life, usually dealing with family and personal connections, and or also just your life and who you are and what defines you. But starting with the first one, each segment ends with his death within that encapsulated piece of time. So he's just dying over and over again.
Does he die the same way every time?
Nope. Always exciting and interesting and different, and tastefully rarely shown.
So he's like Kenny from
Yep,
South Park.
exactly like that. He even wears an orange hoodie
I knew it.
and speaks Brazilian. But yeah, so pretty good slices of life, good story. The art I found to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I really did.
I like the
visual
character style. I like the color choices. Yeah, I thought it was really good for something that is in your head. It was pretty well organized and straightforward, and I enjoyed it a lot.
I enjoyed it as well. Thank you for recommending it.
You're welcome.
It was really cool. I really like stories that show an entire a person's life, and when movies do that, sometimes it can just be a little like a too long of a movie. But I liked it in this way because it wasn't a too long movie, and it's a pretty short series. Because I like the idea of being known for your whole, like, for everything you were for your whole life, and not just
one action or one...
Right, or, and it seems like when you die, you're just, if you are fortunate enough to live until old age, you're just that old person, what I mean? Or
Yeah.
Well, that's why you get a speaker for the dead, and he tells your life when you die.
Okay. And it also reminded me of 6 Feet Under a little bit, that show. Just in that somebody dies every time, except, of course, this time it's the guy every time. But it's, it's just kind of that morbid sort of...
Right. And 6 Feet Under dealt with family and sort of personal connections. I mean, that was the whole thing, was revolving around this one family.
Yeah, and they worked around death, and he kind of what gets you into the story and kind of the trope of the series is that at the beginning of the book, he's the main character is working as I'm blanking on.
He writes obituaries.
Yeah, as an obituary writer, and so he is researching all these people that died and writing around death, and so and at each time he dies, at the end of each one, it's sort of like an obituary as though it were written at that time in his life.
Almost in the same sort of the same style that he's writing the obituaries that he has as a job. So it's sort of a stop right here. What is this person's life been if it were told from right now, from the people around him?
Yeah, and I also really enjoyed it. I read the whole thing on my iPad on Comixology. You told me about it, I downloaded it and just started reading it on like a Sunday afternoon.
Well, you got that app? That's an app that you got for your iPad?
Yes, it's called the Comixology app, and you can buy a lot of comics through it, and it's...
you like apps, though.
I sure do. But but it was, very, really convenient to be able to get it right away and start reading it. And anyway, so... it was one of those where I just sat down, I was like, let me check this out, and I just ended up reading, I think, 8 or 9 issues out of the 10 all in one sitting. Like, it really grabbed me, and I got engrossed in it right away. And I thought it used, it deals with a lot of heavy life and death themes, but it manages to not, and it uses kind of like these obvious, tropes, but it manages to not be to stay kind of a little bit light with it. And I think because he's a writer and his father's a writer, and there's sort of and kind of a philosopher as well, there's kind of this lightness about it, or this, I don't know how, I'm not expressing it well, but
yeah, it definitely doesn't seem like to use, like 6 Feet Under is a dramatic comedy with a very dark comedy, and this isn't a dark comedy. It's sort of I'd almost say more akin to...
It's several slices of life.
Right. Like, it's almost akin to, like, a couple episodes ago we talked about A Prairie Home Companion, where you have these sort of, like Keith was saying about those very relatable... this is someone's life. Mm-hmm. It's something that we can experience and understand. It's not outside the realm. And then it just so happens to end with something that we understand and have trouble coming to terms with, which is death suddenly and out of the blue, which is usually sometimes how it comes.
Yeah.
And so those two things it makes them it's a challenge to sort of tell this sweet story when there's going to be a hard ending. And so watching it...
Well, that's what's interesting is when you first start reading it, you don't realize that, this guy's doomed. And then the more you read it, it almost becomes a kind of like, oh, well, how's it going to happen this time? And after you start to see the pattern, it almost changes the way you read it and look at his life and the segment that you're in. It almost changes your expectations, therefore changes the way you consume it. Right. It's pretty interesting.
Well, I think too, you kind of go through an arc of almost towards acceptance a little bit, where you start off with a level of shock, then oh no, not again. Like, it's those different levels of, like, you're angry at this, you're kind of bargaining, like, come on, it can't be, like, maybe it'll be this person this time, or maybe they're changing way things up. And so I think they're playing with that, like, you're going through the whole grief as dealing with each piece of.
Yeah.
It's almost as if, as an obituary writer, he's preparing all the ones around him to, if he keeps writing these stories in this way, it kind of prepares all the people around him for when he eventually does die, in a way, because like you said, it almost leads to acceptance. There's no escape, so why not just be okay with that?
Yeah. Right.
And it's kind of...
And then you focus on the story more, and you're like, well, he will die. And so what's important is what is happening to him before this happens.
Yeah, I think because I think that was a great point, that by seeing it and having it happen over and over again, you do accept it, and it becomes, you see how life, like how it really illustrates how death and life are, so intertwined. And I think in our culture we try to push death away and not think about it, and we idealize youth and being young, and we kind of like don't like aging, don't like old people, and don't want to think about death. And this is like doing the opposite. It's just like taking it head on and talking about it constantly and having it happen constantly. And in a way, I feel like because we're seeing these different parts of him at different parts of life, and then he dies at each kind of key turning point in his life, it kind of, instead of making him like, oh, that was all for now, that's over, it instead kind of makes that moment in his life seem more important and seem more like, it's kind of that whole like, live each day as though you might die tomorrow, because it could happen. And
right. It's like the Flaming Lips song, Do You Realize? Exactly like that.
Yeah, and I think it also, in a way, like there is something. It definitely is not American in that way. Like there's some, and in a way, it's like it's kind of poetic, and like bordering on corny sometimes. In a way that's, I think.
Well, just a little saccharine.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe a little saccharine,
or just not cynical is the other way of saying that.
Not cynical.
Like it's something where because we're cynical.
Come on, if it's not cynical, I mean, really, come on.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I feel like
it's not real,
especially in this kind of like what you would call graphic novel style. I think a lot of what's there is kind of more like, I mean, especially more, what's been popular is more kind of cynical and hard-edged, I guess. And this isn't like that. It's just not. It's less common. It feels unusual in American comics, just because we generally think of superhero comics when we're talking about comics here.
right?
So it's refreshing in that.
The art is really beautiful too. It's got an intro by Craig Thompson, who's known for Blankets, which I think all of us love, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what Blankets is.
It's
honestly,
like it's like a cloth, kind of like a thicker.
We'll do Blankets one time for the episode.
cloth thing.
Is it? It's good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's very good.
But yeah, Craig Thompson is a great artist, and this art in this book reminded me of his, and it's also it's very beautiful and a little more indie, less superhero-y.
Right.
Well, it's interesting that Jules said it doesn't feel American story-wise, because the art in it as well kind of feels a little European. There's a great tradition of comics in France and north of there, and
the Alps.
And I feel like the art and the coloring feels a little like comics from France right now these days. And it's very booming there. A lot of great stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been, comics have always been big in Europe and treated differently. I mean, in France, when I was growing up in France, comics were always hardcover books, and they were more expensive, but I mean, they also tended to be longer. It wasn't just this like serial, you get one every month kind of thing. It was just like more, like a series of books. Like it was a larger volume, and they were sold at bookstores along with standard books. So, and they always had the gamut. They were for children and for adults and that sort of thing. But I think they were just less exported until maybe 20 years ago when
Right.
there started to be more cross-pollination. But yeah, I don't know really where I was going with that.
Well, I think too the inker and colorer might be. I think he may have struck a deal and had it published in the U.S. because I think the colorist and the inker are American.
Why do you think that?
I don't know, because I think when I was looking at the front, the masthead,
does.
it was saying as much.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'd have to look at that again.
Yeah, it's pretty confusing.
But it says, but it's a Vertigo imprint, and they're known for being that sort of indie, telling a non-traditional story.
Yeah, and when I was talking about how you don't see that sort of thing here, it actually then made me think of Death, the High Cost of Living.
Oh yeah.
Which is it's a spin-off character from the Sandman series, and that series was like had some similar vibes a little bit, but it was more slice of death life.
Yeah, I mean that one too, like that's his cosmology, and his characters,
and he's British.
imposed upon, this
Diamond
is
didn't write Death though, did he?
He didn't write the miniseries
spin-off,
but he invented the character.
Oh, okay.
right.
But the concept is that he has these different. It's like these like Death personified is this
Right.
kind of teenage girl, and it's like she's
so goth.
Yeah, and she looks very goth. And the premise of that miniseries is that once every so often she gets to live one day as a human, and be alive and then disappear again, and so
or die too. I think
yeah,
she dies.
And so it's her going through this day and just experiencing, like meeting people along the way, just average people, and experiencing life. And it has some echoes of some of the themes in here. But
And I think too, what he's doing there is saying that death is not a stranger. Death is tied to life, and if it were personified, it would be a living thing, and to keep it tied to life, it would have to experience life and be of the same, even though it's sort of this being that knows what's beyond, it also knows and is connected to what is our life now, and so that's just as important as what's beyond.
Just like Meet Joe Black.
Yep.
just like that.
So this comic, don't even read this comic. Just watch Meet Joe Black.
Or What About Bob? I mean,
What About-
really
yeah.
sure
Yeah.
like themes.
I'm sailing.
I just want to say one more quick thing at that.
Of course.
So it jumps around to different points in his life, and you see the evolution. It's not completely linear. You go back and forth a little bit, but you see the evolution of the character and the evolution of his relationship with his family, and what he's like before he has children, before he has his own family, and after, and all that. And I think I'm in like my mid-30s now, and I think you're at that where I'm at that point in my life where I'm starting to, I'm sort of at that. Not quite, but sort of that middle life, then reaching that midpoint, and where you're starting to think, like, do I want to have my own family or not? And you start seeing your parents differently and your relationship with them differently. And
You buy a Corvette.
And you kidnap your own family and
That's
just
right.
keep them for a
and
while.
you start thinking about your own childhood and what it meant to have parents and what it is to be a parent in a different light and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like the book hit me at a good time in my life in a way, because I've been thinking about a lot of the things that it does a very good job at illustrating and discussing, and it's part of what makes it really interesting.
That's a good little bit of information.
Yeah. I've been looking at the Wikipedia entries for these two brothers who made this comic, and trying to figure out who did the art, who did the writing, and they just keep saying over and over again, both of them. So I'm kind of wondering if they are specifically, maybe they do both draw it and both write it. I mean, it really seems like it's drawn by one person, but maybe they do share that. But I wonder if maybe they really feel that it's so intertwined in creating a comic that they don't want to
Separate.
Right, to actually say who did what, and then, and make that an official thing
Right.
Yeah.
that people know about, because I'm sure other people are wondering, like, well, which one did the art, and I wonder if they're making a point of saying it doesn't matter. We made this story together.
We are one.
Yes.
We came from the same egg.
So Keith, you liked it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I like more capes in my comic books, but
Yeah. He has one.
no,
for
it kind
everybody.
of felt, I like a lot of the Dave McKean stuff. It kind of felt, I don't know if you read Cages, but it's got that nice little, like, just flow from, day-to-day occurrences. And it's only after reading them all at once that you start to see the connections and things. I mean, yeah.
You see a man's life
Mm-hmm.
and his many deaths.
All right. So I think we've
Thanks, John.
talked this one through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Daytripper, it's a Vertigo imprint from DC Comics. You can check it out at your local comic book store.
Or you can download it on Comixology.
Yeah, you can download it on Comixology. It's also probably available on Amazon's Kindle app if you have one of those kind of things,
Reading
because they're starting to do comics
on
there.
the Kindle sucks, so don't.
Unless you
Well,
have.
unless you have
Not
Kindle
recommended.
Fire.
Yeah, Kindle
not
Fire.
recommended. Not recommended. Even on the
But
Kindle
even
Fire.
on the Kindle app on the iPad, I've gotten comics. It's
the image quality is underwhelming.
No, this is Vertigo
Okay.
though, so it's different.
From whatever.
The image you get is image quality. But anyhow,
No, Vertigo is an image.
that's what I was trying to tell them.
Oh,
yeah,
He's making it.
Got it.
Jules.
You got me. You got me.
So yeah, you can the graphic
Holt wins
novel
the
if you
nerdiest
like
joke
to.
award for the night.
It's a tough thing. I'm on the fence about reading comics on an iPad or whatever, and there's definitely looking at the art. I read a little bit of both. I've read it before in hardcover, or not hardcover, in physical,
In
and read
paper,
it in
yeah.
paper, and as well as in digital. So, print has a different quality, and that plays even more truly when it comes to art and comics. So it's honestly, the story is going to hold up either way, and story carries art. So don't worry about that.
I think I prefer it on paper, but the convenience of just having my iPad there is like what gets me to read it on the iPad.
I mean, seeing it in physical form now, it definitely has a different feel. I think there's a softness and the physical paper. It's also physically a little bit larger than the iPad screen, so that also plays a part.
Right.
But yeah, I
how
think,
much zoom ability do you have on this
a
stuff?
lot. I mean, the Comixology app, you can actually double tap. And
yeah,
it will
you have
zoom
a
into-
lot, but the thing is, you're not always encouraged to do that, because if you can read the text already, you might just kind of read it and not.
Right.
You kind of zoom
Yeah.
in if you want to see the art in more detail, just the same way you might
Right,
bring
yeah.
the paper closer to your face to study it a little more. I think the biggest difference is that it's everything's a little like sharper, like like almost too sharp, like too crisp. Everything's a little more vibrant, and the print version just has a softer quality. I
Right.
think.
It's almost like something projected on a screen versus something.
It's almost like that.
Yeah, it's well, no,
It's almost like that.
well, you know what I mean. Like in a projected digital theater, there's like a slight offset, so things are softer. It's not just the film quality that gives you that softness; it's also the fact that it's projected.
Yeah.
And versus a crystal display or whatever, it's all right there and it's crisp, and that's true with printed media as well as sort of scanned media.
It's a different quality, but still.
Yeah, but Jules,
I
have
was
you ever
able to
tried
enjoy
reading it with
thoroughly.
your built-in Gaussian blur? I think that would
well,
make it a little softer.
It's the filter's really increased over time, and now it sort of overcompensates.
Cool. Well, Holt, thank you for bringing that.
Yeah,
I
so,
really enjoyed it.
Again, Daytripper from 2011. You should check it out.
Well, I know we're running out of time, and I'm going to make this quick. Do you know of any other Brazilian comics that are... is there a big Brazilian comic scene that
That's
you've
what
ever
makes
heard
it
of?
so weird. This is the only one. All right.
But do
true.
you know if these authors have another body? Okay, well,
I didn't go into that. Something to look
research
up.
on.
All right.
All right, thanks, John.
Great pick.
Till the morning appears in the sky. No, let us play, for it is yet day, and we cannot go to sleep. Besides, in the sky, the little birds fly, and the hills are all covered with sheep. Well, go and play till the light fades away, and then go.
If ever there is an air of intrigue and mystery around a pop artist, it is around the artist known as Rodriguez.
We thought he was like the inner city poet. He was this wandering spirit around the city.
He's like a wise man, a prophet. How many records do you think he sold in America?
In America, 6.
Born in the troubled city.
Well, it's still a bit of a mystery how the first copy of Cold Fact actually came to South Africa, but it spread very quickly. To many of us South Africans, he was the soundtrack to our lives.
Everybody I knew had his records.
That you can't
The message it had was be anti-establishment. Really, the first opposition to apartheid, they'll tell you that they were influenced by Rodriguez.
Last week we were dealing with the theme of recent discoveries, and this pick of mine is probably not new to many people, especially if you follow documentaries, if you're big into documentaries. But I know it sure surprised me right before the Oscars when I saw it. I saw it in a theater, and so it's called Searching for Sugar Man. It's a documentary directed by a fella named Malik. I had his name correct, but I'm gonna kill it. Malik Benjelloul, and it's directed by a fella named Malik Benjelloul, and it's an amazing story. It's almost like a Cinderella story. You want to hear these kinds of stories in real life, but it's about a struggling songwriter from the 70s who just toils away in obscurity. Meanwhile, some of his music had made it down to South Africa and become huge hits without him ever knowing about it. And it's interesting because they say this often, that he sold more records than Elvis Presley in South Africa. But I don't know how they quantify that, because no one seems to know how many records they sold, because they can't figure out how to pay this guy. So I don't know how they can claim that he sold more records than Elvis. Anyway, the movie itself starts off. It documents all these music journalists from South Africa who grew up with this guy's music, who are just know all. There were only 2 records, I believe, and they knew them all by heart because they grew up listening to them. They were kind of almost their protest music, and they say that he was their Bob Dylan, this guy was just a mystery to them. They had this music. His songs were dark and somber, singer-songwritery, very beautiful, talking about equality, the grit of living in the city, the grit of living in modern life. And it just documents these music writers who went out on a search to find this guy, because as far as they knew, there were all these stories of this guy killing himself on stage, lighting himself on fire. Nobody seemed to know he was a mystery. He's mired in myth. So that's how the movie documents these people looking for this guy and what they find or what they don't find. So I know people are worried about spoilers, so that's all I'm going to say about it for now. And if something else happens, if listeners beware, from this point forward, we're allowed to say spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then shut us off. And I hope you enjoyed it. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about Searching for Sugar Man and people's impressions. So I'm going to start with Mary Varn. Mary, what did you think?
Well, I'm glad you gave that spoiler alert, because it's really hard to talk about this movie without talking about it. So can we just say right now?
Yes, go for it, Mary.
So he's alive.
You spill the beans.
But he's in a hospital.
No. So they find him, and that happens early in the movie, but not so early. And
it happens. Yeah. It happens about 20. I think around 20 to 30 minutes through the movie. But the way that the story is told, it is a mystery until you find out he's alive. So
I think it's longer than that. I think it's about halfway to the movie.
It might very well be.
Yeah.
But the way the movie is paced and the way it's very deliberate, that they don't want you to know.
Right.
Yeah. They build it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead, Mary. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, yeah, I think that won't be a spoiler for a lot of people, but it would have been for me because all I really knew was that it was a search for this guy, but I didn't know that they find him and that he's alive. But just what really struck me about this movie is how cool the guy is.
Yeah.
Like, he's like zen, and he's happy about finding this out, but he's just not how...
Well, we'll tell the story. So this guy, his name is Sixto Rodriguez. I guess we should mention that.
Yeah, Sugar Man, like the title Sugar Man comes from one of his songs.
Yeah,
so the actual dude they're searching for is this Rodriguez.
Yeah,
that's kind of his
he goes
stage
by
name.
Rodriguez, but his name is Sixto Rodriguez, and he was a singer-songwriter, folk singer from the Detroit area, which is kind of an odd placement for such a... I've never heard of many singer-songwriters.
But he was recorded under Motown, so it was like within that.
He wasn't recorded under Motown.
I
Motown
think eventually
Records
they picked it up or something. They distributed.
Well, because they were the ones who were like. That's why they interviewed the guy from Motown in it, because they were like, "So Motown, why you guys have been getting checks from South Africa? Why haven't you paid this guy?" And the Motown guy's like, "We can't talk numbers. Get out of my face!" Like, he was just like,
yeah, dodged it.
Yeah, he was like trying to scoot it.
He didn't dodge it very well. But but the interesting thing is this fella, he had what he considered to be a somewhat successful recording career. He made 2 records. They didn't do so well, so time to go back to work as a construction worker for years, for decades. Like doing, and the way to describe it too, he was doing, the worst of the worst kind of
like demolition on
work.
Rundown houses, and cleaning up like.
I mean, and this is Detroit as it's falling apart too.
Yeah.
So this is a guy. They aren't like building new stuff in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, he was. I mean, recording in the 70s, 80s, it was like the bottom of the American urban decay. Like all cities across the country were in the same situation.
But Detroit was like that was the bottom of the pit.
Yeah.
Like that's like the reverse pyramid. Detroit. Well, no, I mean like you watch like the comedic television or movies from that time.
Yeah.
Like Kentucky Fried Movie. One of the jokes is like they're gonna execute this guy, and they're like, they cut off one guy's head, and the next guy they're like, take him to Detroit. And the guy's like, no! He wants to be killed instead of taken there. And so it's if your city is the butt of jokes, it's because they really were like, they were the ones bearing the brunt. The car industry crashed, and that was it. It was like,
I wonder whatever happened to Detroit. What happened?
Gone.
Filed for bankruptcy just last week. Anyway, Detroit sucked then. I guess it's probably no better now. I bet it's actually pretty nice if you live there, so I'm not going to say anything disparaging. I mean, come on, Eminem, y'all. Eminem. But anyway, getting back to this guy.
That's in Times Square now, M&M's. It's not.
Meanwhile, this guy is toiling away and has no idea that his music is influencing people. And I think that's what he's most excited about. He never apparently cared much for the money anyway. So he's just happy to know that people are out there influenced by his music and it inspires them. So when they come to him, they eventually do come to him. And this is every artist's dream, I think. Some people probably are like, well, I'd love to make a bunch of money. But I think more important to an artist is that one day you're going to wake up and find out that that you were appreciated, that everybody did love your stuff,
right.
And I think that is such an optimistic thing.
Well, that's why, there's another film that they show how fortunate, like Bill and Ted were extremely fortunate to be able to see how popular they were to become.
It's true.
As Wild Stallions.
But I think what's so... Sorry, pause for laughter at John's hilarious
Add laugh
joke.
track.
But it's true, guys.
It is.
But yeah, I think what's so amazing about this story is just how amazing he is and how he's so... At one point, they say to him, this would have changed your life so much, for the better, don't you think? And he's kind of like, well, I don't know.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and he seems very content with how his how his life has been. And I sort of, this is completely speculation on my part, but I kind of wonder if he thinks that maybe if he did have that the fame and fortune that came with that maybe that could have, been detrimental to him.
Yeah,
or something.
he'd be a different person almost.
Right.
Yeah.
And
he's
I mean,
a true poet in that way. I mean, you just hear even the way he speaks, the things he talks about, the things he considers important. He just really has the...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's definitely an admirable, or at least comes through in the documentary as a really admirable person. Like, he's very humble, he's very restrained, and it's not just himself, it's also everyone around him, everyone they interview.
Yeah.
People that he worked, all the people that he worked with just said, there was something special about this guy, and even though he was a total flop in the U.S. and London and all that, like, he made a huge impression on the people that worked with him, on the people who recorded him and produced him.
People that discovered him.
Yeah. And in addition to that, they interview a few people who are still like coworkers and people in his life,
right,
and
like
his
fellow
family,
contractors and stuff.
Yeah, and also his family. In fact, there was one guy in particular, I think it's Jerome Ferretti, who's a bricklayer. Anyways, it's one of his friends, is another construction guy, is incredibly eloquent.
Yeah.
And just, you can tell, like, so I mean, basically he's working in a setting where I don't think you find a lot of deep
appreciators of poetry.
Yeah, and deep, and also just deep people. So this guy, like, this Rodriguez character is working in construction, but he shows up wearing, like 3-piece suits, and like he basically continues to dress a little bit like a rock star. And he, even though he's there to do this construction work, the guy describes him in this way that everything that he does and the way that he looks at it, like he's an artist, and approaches life in that way, and that no matter what, you can't take that away from him. And just to see that the love and admiration of this guy, and to hear his eloquence, just really made me, like, rethink my idea of what a blue collar, quote unquote, worker is, and what, that and also just reminds you that people aren't end up where they are in life for all kinds of reasons, and it doesn't have a lot to do with their intelligence or their character. And it was good to be reminded of that, and that, who knows, who the artists and poets are among us, and it's that's the other thing that's really cool about this story, is just knowing that there's, that those kind of, like, that artists are among us, in that way.
Maybe I should save this for the end of the segment, but I wanted to say, like, the major thing about this movie is when I stopped watching it, I just felt so good. Mm-hmm. You hear the term feel good movie, but this movie made me feel really good about the human race, mm-hmm. about people taking care of people. It's just, I was really, I love it when that happens.
And it also, made you, like, now I know who he is, and I'm curious about his music. And
I bought it all, like, the day after I watched the movie. That's another interesting thing. The whole movie has his music playing through it, and it's great.
Yeah.
And it's this nice singer-songwriter. Well, I keep saying singer-songwriter stuff, but it's a little folk, a little singer-songwriter, a little blues, which is, how do you categorize, like, Jim Croce or, the contemporaries of his, the 70s kind of troubadours.
Another like failure in his time.
Yes.
Jim Croce.
But when you hear the music, it just seems familiar to you. It felt to
absolutely.
me like wow, I must have heard this song. It sounds so like I've heard it 100 times.
Yeah.
And
go
ahead,
I don't know. It's kind of bad. I think I found out too much about this movie before I saw it, where I heard, it won an award. I'd heard, like, the whole backstory. Like, my dad is, like, and my mom and, like, my family really enjoyed the movie. Like I know people like just kind of everyone's praising it. They're loving the music. They're loving the whole story. And so I kind of went into it like, oh, this is, I love documentaries. It's going to be a great one. And I think it was a little overblown for me. And that kind of, it was detrimental.
The hype kind of.
It kind of hurt it. And because it's a very simple documentary.
Yeah.
And it's very like straightforward. Like, here are these fans in South Africa. This is like some dudes talking about this guy and his mystery. Here's the guy.
Yeah.
Talking about the guy. Here's where we go next. And I was just kind of, I don't know. It just didn't have a style or a twist to make me really, I guess again, it was one where I was a little sad that I knew more about it going into it. Because I think discovering...
But you can't say it didn't have that twist. I mean, the twist is the story itself. But it's an amazing story.
But I guess that's the thing. It's kind of given away. And then I'm looking at it, it's like, wait, it's 2013. This thing is out. They're showing concert footage from 1998 when this guy... It's like he was discovered and found. Like, articles and stuff were coming out in the late 80s. So he was really
but you hadn't heard of it.
But he was only off the scene for like 15 years.
Well, they're not saying that just happened.
No, I know, but I guess what I'm saying is like this documentary and the hype kind of sold it as like, boom, found this guy from 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Right. When really what they did is they found a great story from
20 years ago.
Yeah, from a little less, like 98 is when
he was on the air, but those stories were from earlier.
He played in South Africa in 98.
Right.
Yeah,
that's when they brought him.
That's the year that they found him.
Well, that's when he came back to play a big concert.
The articles and stuff were like in 95, 96.
Well, no, 95 is when they put the missing things out.
Yeah, I think it was around 97, 98 that the article was written, that they found him, that the article was written. And then
so
after that
record came out, I think they said in 74. So, I mean, whatever the...
Still 20 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess...
So it's not a new story.
But it's one I hadn't heard. It was new to me, just like this podcast.
Right. So what they did is... They found this great story that got some attention, but not maybe as huge. And time had passed since it was a story, so they kind of rediscovered a good story, and it hadn't been made into a documentary. Right. And I think it's a good format for the story because you get to hear his music and see him, and that I think gives you a different.
But see, that's the thing too. Like it's like you watch a TV show about the greatest band in the world. Yeah. And then they finally go on stage and it's whatever writer could put together for a half-hour segment that week.
Right.
And it's like... So again, it's sort of like, this man has been missing for 30 years. South Africa loves his music. They built the country around his music. This is the greatest series of songs in the world. And, I just wasn't as heavily sold on it. I don't know. I mean,
I gotcha.
It's not... I don't think the songs are bad. They're catchy and there's good songs in them. Like the Sugar Man song, I liked a lot. Like I like a lot of the songs that are in there. Some I just thought were too.
But he's no Elvis, is what you're saying.
He's no Elvis. Well, he's no. I don't know if I'd say he's like. I don't know if I'd say he's Bob Dylan.
Right.
You're just reacting to something that somebody says in the movie about him being better than Bob Dylan.
Right.
But they're drawing parallels because he's a contemporary, right. And they're trying. And in South Africa, they're saying yes, this guy
is our Bob Dylan,
right? And personality wise, compared to like a PA or D.A. Pennybaker jerk Bob Dylan, kind of like young kid jerk persona. Yeah, this guy is more genuine and nice and like an actual approachable human who's an artist off to the side in a bigger way. I don't know. I just wasn't quite as grabbed as I was. That's it. I think it's really. It's not a disappointment in the film, not a disappointment in the story. It's more that my expectations were much higher for what I felt was delivered. And that is not to undercut the movie. It's really good. It is. It just isn't something that, it didn't blow me away. And I think I screwed up in going into it thinking I would be blown away.
Yeah, it didn't meet your expectations that were maybe settled.
Right. And like that song they kind of play pretty regularly, like, I want the Wonder song. It grates on me. It's just too, it's like nursery rhyme. I just didn't. It was too simple for me, and it just kind of was like too saccharine, and I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I really, I grit my teeth every time they would play it, and that's, that just happens. So.
So I'll talk about my reaction, which is on the flip side. I think even if I'd heard, because my girlfriend, while she was watching it, was like, this feels so familiar, and I think she had heard a radio story. Probably.
See, I think I had also, like, that was it. In the build up to this, I had heard the NPR story,
I think they were. I think so. I think this story had already been presented before, and she was already familiar with it. She was like, but even if I'd totally forgotten about it. So to me, it was like it was new, like, and so the film worked for me because it kind of has this very deliberate, slow build where it's establishing who he was from people who worked with him, and then establishing all the players in South Africa and explaining why maybe he happened to catch on there and all that, and then you get to the point to where you realize, nobody, he sort of disappeared because he was never famous in the States and no one knew anything about him, and he just fell into obscurity. And then so they do a really nice job of kind of building that mystery little by little, so that, just at first I thought, just finding out who he was and where he had come from was going to be it.
It's going to be the story.
Yeah, and they kind of build it up that way, like, we found out who he was, and then it's like, actually, he has a daughter, and he's alive, and so all that took me by surprise, and again, it was kind of this slow build. I also think even though it is kind of very straightforward in a way, I mean, I think it's just such a great story that you didn't need a lot of bells and whistles. You just need to tell it because it's so interesting. And a lot of the characters involved are really interesting and are eloquent, I think. And, but there were some, it does have its own flavor. There's all these cinematic establishing shots of the different places, which just kind of felt different than a standard documentary.
Well, I feel like they just needed imagery to fill the...
Yeah, a little bit. But also, I mean, some of it was just, I thought, because they would show it, especially in the beginning, long shots without too much talking or anything. I think just to kind of give you a flavor of the place, and also trying to capture the flavor of Detroit and in the 70s. And so it's trying to recreate some of the moods and settings and present them to you. And then it also... so I think it does a pretty good job at evoking a lot of that stuff. And sorry, I lost my steam on that. I had more to say, but
yeah, it was interesting. Like, the thing that interested me most was I kind of this is almost a little bit out of the blue, but I just was listening to a podcast from the How Stuff Works, podcast network, and they just had a quick little excerpt about apartheid. And listening to it, and then that started to mesh the timeline for me more. I think what was lacking a little bit was some of the historical context, because I didn't know too much about the timeline of apartheid.
Well, they might not have. Here's was I know quite a bit about.
I mean, there's some they kind of talk about it a little bit, with the scoring of the record and the sort of the darkness in those aspects, but it's an all-white crowd in 1998.
That's what I think. I think
I
think it was the young Dutch folks that was listening to Rodrigo. They had enough money to buy foreign records. You know what I mean? It wasn't the ANC that was listening to it. Maybe the British, but I think the Afrikaners were that's why they probably didn't go into it much, because these were the and I'm not saying that the Afrikaner youth didn't have their part to play in ending apartheid as well, but they were kind of the ruling class, so they probably kept a little of that.
They're enjoying some anti-establishment from a position of power.
Well,
right.
I mean,
they were basically the younger generation who was saying, "Hey, we agree that this should end." You know what I mean?
Which I'm sure had its.
I mean,
helped.
It's in the same way that white folks got involved in the social.
Yeah. No. I mean, I
think
I
it's
agree
the
with that.
same
I think,
spirit or whatever.
I think though, this guy's music is not an anthem for the revolution.
Right.
Huh? I don't know. That's what they said in the book. That's what they said in the movie.
I think he was an anthem for
the youth. It wasn't an anthem for the Afrikaner.
That's my concern. I was like, this is a Dutch Afrikaner director.
Well, I'm telling you.
I think there's a slant on it, and I'm like in a documentary. I'm very conscious of that.
If you go to South Africa and you ask the kids what they liked, and they said they listened to Rodrigo, the Rodriguez, then I mean, like, that's what the guy said. This fueled our youthful vigor. His songs talked about his songs specifically talk about how inequality is wrong, and that's one of the things they latched onto. It was banned. It was banned by the apartheid government.
Which is
a song was banned.
Yeah,
by the apartheid government.
Yeah.
But I think they maybe played that up a little bit, but I think it was that for a small subset of the population. We can say that.
Right. I'm just saying there weren't flags with his lyrics written on them that they were waving around. Like, it's not like they're blaring his songs on loudspeakers as they break down the walls.
He was just part of
He's
the
part
atmosphere.
of the tapestry of the...
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I think you're right that they maybe oversold that a little.
There was a level of nostalgia, which is understandable because, again, they're saying, like you're saying, they grew up with this stuff, and it's part of the changes that were going on. This music was there too, and it's a good story that they can all latch onto and attach to, and that's
and
all
I mean,
fine
when they
and
showed
good.
the crowds when he came back to play in the '90s, I mean, it was all races in that crowd. It wasn't all Afrikaners.
He himself said it was a sea of white faces. Like, they say that in the documentary. Like, he says, like, there's all these white people just sitting there playing.
Well, the footage shows not just white people too.
I think there's just some shadows cast. Like, it was all white people.
I mostly saw white people.
Well, the movie's called Searching for Sugar Man. Well, you should watch it and suit yourself.
I do recommend watching the movie. It's very good. There's a reason it won an award, not just because of the Academy.
And it is a feel-good story, and there's great characters in it,
and the music is good. Most of the music is really good.
But
it
John
just
hates
doesn't
it.
fuel a.
He just hates that one song.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fuel a revolution.
Not like Les Mis,
I wonder-
which fueled my revolution against the French.
I wonder why John hates Rodriguez.
And I wonder what you saw in this movie, and I wonder. I wonder if this was new to you.
Well, this guy, after this, he makes money because he actually goes to
This was
South Africa, and
heartfelt.
everybody
They
loves
pay
him.
him cash
They
money.
paid him a bunch of money, and guess what he did? He comes back and he gives it to the poor. This is an awesome
And his
movie.
family. He like paid off his family's debts.
Yeah.
And that was the most genuine part of this to me, because those were the people who were connected to him.
Yeah.
Were his daughters, and like one of his daughters just like tearing up and like breaking up. Like, that was like, I didn't care about this guy who got his nickname Sugar Man as an Afrikaner youth. That to me was the meat of the story, and they just didn't.
John,
have
you
enough
know
of
what I
that.
kept thinking about during this movie? That Doctor Who episode that we just watched with Van Gogh.
Oh yeah.
It's just like that.
Because they go back in time because it's Doctor Who.
They tell him that he is famous.
Well, they're with Van Gogh, and he's all poor and never a success, and they're seeing all these famous paintings.
He's a year shy of
killing himself, and spoiler alert, at the very end they take him to the museum in modern times and show him how he's actually the celebrated artist,
That's
and
what actually
and that's why
drives him
he starts
insane.
crying.
he just
That's
breaks
what
down
drives
in
him
tears and
insane.
he's so happy.
And he like cuts his ear off right there.
Yeah.
And he dies from his cut off ear.
And he's an alien, because in Doctor Who they always have aliens.
Yeah.
No, there's an
Theo
alien.
was the alien.
Wait, so
Theo?
Theo, his brother,
Yeah.
was
Wait,
the
so-
alien.
so he was a Dalek? Is that
No.
what you're saying? Because they don't have ears,
different.
so that doesn't really make sense.
Doctor Who?
Van Gogh. So yeah, I recommend that episode over. No. I recommend
Does the
them
guy
both
give him
equally.
his scarf? Is it the scarf
He's-
Doctor Who?
So each Doctor...
It's-
we'll get into Doctor Who
It's
another
Matt
time.
Smith. It's Matt Smith.
Let's just say that there was a doctor... You guys remember the one that used to wear a celery stalk on his
I don't know
lapel?
anything about any of
That
them.
was his, like, quirk. He didn't have a scarf. He had a celery stalk that he would wear on his, like...
A quark is like one of those tiny particles. Right?
No, this is a quirk, which is like a tiny thing in your
But he's
personality.
Quantum mechanics.
So, yes.
I don't get it.
Thank you, Keith. It was
Yes.
new to me, and I loved it.
Good.
Yes.
Glad you
I
liked it.
loved it too. I really did
He
enjoy
loved
it.
the heck
I
out
just
of it.
Yeah, he just
was sad about things.
Just trying to fuel the conversation.
Hey, man.
But yeah,
Everybody's gotta do
you should
their
check out
thing.
Searching for Sugarman. It is actually harder to find. It's not on Netflix right now. You kind of
can
have
buy
to.
it,
You
though.
can buy it.
On iTunes, it's expensive.
You
You
can
may
see
as-
it in New York City right now at City's Village.
Yeah, it's still
Cinemas.
airing.
Yes, at
Yes.
11 a.m.
Honestly, maybe buy the hard disc version of it because it has special features at least. Because you buy the iTunes version and they don't have the special features.
you
It's
get
available on
nothing.
HBO on
You just get
demand or
the-
something right now.
No, it's not.
No, I think it's in between because I think because of the Oscar win, that usually like kind of stretches the release out. So it's
Especially
still
for
playing,
this, it got like a re-up.
Yeah,
and
so
it's
it's-
really popular. I mean, that's
Yeah.
again, that's I think why my expectations are high because it's hugely popular still, and we're well out of the season. So
I think it will eventually make its way to Netflix, etc. It'll just take a few more months.
yeah. So Searching for Sugar Man from 2013,
Directed by Malik Benjelloul. Benjelloul.
He had his own way of thinking of things. This guy,
Yep, sure did.
but you should really check it out. It's a good movie. Really, like, regardless, I'm not being cynical. And I'm not being
Just
sarcastic.
stop talking about the
fine.
movie,
All right,
John.
guys.
Like
It's okay.
everything.
But I did. It didn't really like it, but it's all right.
It's just really hot in here.
That he had committed suicide.
And a lot of people have different versions of the story.
He set himself alight on stage.
He reached down and pulled up a gun. I thought it'd make a good story. Find out how Rodriguez died.
There was nothing on the record to tell us who he was or where he was from. So we started looking quite deeply at the lyrics.
I met a girl in Dearborn.
We found him, we found him.
These are the days of miracles and wonder.
I heard he did a little construction work.
He was really doing the work that no one else wanted to do. Rich in a lot of things, but perhaps not material things.
I said, in South Africa, you are more popular than Elvis Presley.
Next day, he says, Emerson, I got to go on tour. I said, why is that, Rodriguez?
This is really going to be Rodriguez. You'll only know if you can actually sing these songs.
And the best part was still to come.
Thanks for keeping me alive.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the second episode of our recent series. Next week, we're going to delve into Cult and Fringe. So once we figure out those picks, you'll get to see what they are.
I'm going to bring a record by the Cult and a
Yep.
Fringe jacket.
I'm going to be
I'm going to
wearing
do the
Fringe.
TV series Fringe.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to join a cult.
I'm going to wear a fringe jacket.
I already said fringe jacket, dude.
So one thing...
I'm going to do that too.
This is not within the theme. It's going to be like cult classics and stuff. But yeah, so that there may be. There was a coworker was watching a Netflix movie today about I guess it's a recent documentary. A guy who started the filmmaker documentarian started his own fake religion and documented the whole process of him as like an Eastern guy making all these Western people believe in this religion.
Cool.
And it wasn't real, but none of these Western people knew it wasn't real until he released this movie just recently.
Wow. Does he still have followers? I mean, did he still have followers when he released it?
I don't know. Maybe they're following him with knives and guns now, but yeah, so it's pretty weird. But anyhow.
Sounds like that would be a good pick.
That's a good, but it's not cult. It's something else. For another time.
Occult.
No, it could be a cult movie if.
Yeah.
It's like
a small
brand new
cult
though.
of people were following it.
We'll start the
cult of us.
The cult of New to You. Yes. So from the cult of New to You, I am one of your leaders, Jim Jones, John Holt. You can find me at Lord Joho, and I recommend cherry Kool-Aid. Mary.
That's me.
What kind of cult leader are you?
The cool kind.
Kool-Aid.
Doesn't make you kill yourself.
You play the guitar?
I think
she makes people kill other people.
I think she's the Hale-Bop style.
Yeah, Nikes.
Yeah. Put them shoes on. Get in the bunk
Short
beds.
hair. Gender free.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Sure.
Hale-Bop.
So where can we learn about your cult?
At Mary Varn on Twitter. You can find out about my cult of blue cats at npccomic.com.
All right, Jules.
What about you, Jules?
You can find me at beautifuljules.com, where you can worship me.
All right.
For I am beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
And I've been David Koetsch, Keith Vincent. And if I'm still around, if I don't burn up soon, I guess you can find my stuff on Tumblr at earthlingkeith.tumblr.com and at earthlingkeith.com.
And where did you get those awesome glasses?
Jesus gave them to me.
Nice. It's wacko for Waco. So, if you guys want to find more about the show, you should check out the website, newtoyoushow.com, where we have links to and pictures of the subject matter that's held herein.
Now with comments.
Yeah, we have comments. If you want to send any comments to us, you should use the Tumblr or send it to our Twitter account at newtoyoushow.
And the first person that comments will get that comment read aloud on the show.
Unless the comment is first.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I'll read that.
First. Haywood Jablomi says first.
That deserves a shout out. Why not?
Good job, Haywood. So from all of us at New to You Show, thank you so much for tuning in. If it wasn't new, at least it may have been new to you. But it was probably pretty new because this was a recent episode.
Yeah. This is David Koetsch, Son of God.
Yeah. All right, good night, everybody.
Such a question is when there are many possible answers, such as hard work.
Feel I'm alone in this whole of existence. I know it takes time, but I'm losing my persistence. The distance is too far to fetch, so I sketch on pages and hope that some catch the thoughts of my inverted worded music. No trial and error, just emotion when I do this. Focus on each beat, more so than you're wasting time in front of your television. Maybe I'm faking it, cause I don't have the proper amount of cash or the latest clothes to begin. Guess I like looking like trash. I wanna help others outside of that bubble they trap their head in. But me talking to you is like racing towards a dead end. Yes, I'll speak to myself for the rest of my time left. It's a little hard to talk when you keep smothering each breath. Yes, I've been close to death more times than you can count with no